So I grew up near New York City in New Jersey in a working class family for which I'm very grateful. I think that I felt an interest in spirituality from an early age. I can remember being 11 years old and reading Thoreau and even Thomas Merton, not understanding it, but somehow being drawn to that. But it was in college that something opened up and I became interested in Eastern religions. First Buddhism and Hinduism. And I studied a bit of Sanskrit for a couple of years. And after college, I also practiced in these traditions. A little bit at the Zen Center in San Francisco in the late 60s when I lived there. And then it was around 1970 when I was back on the East Coast and living in New Hampshire. And I met what you might call an esoteric school based in the teachings of Gurdjieff and Zen. And for about 5 years, I was involved about 2 days a week with physical work, meditation, mindfulness every weekend. It was a great training in mindfulness. But after these 5 years, toward the end of it, I felt that something of the heart was missing. And I would leave that group. I didn't know where I was going. But shortly thereafter, I began to meet some Sufi teachers. And eventually I found myself traveling to Turkey and meeting a man who would become my first real teacher of the heart. His name was Süleyman Dede. He was from Konya, Turkey, which is where Rumi lived. And he was the living representative of Rumi's teaching. And once there, I knew that I was home. I had found my spiritual home. Everything else prior to that was preparation, good preparation. But the teachings of the heart and the teachings of this cosmic love that Rumi represents superseded everything. My teacher, Süleyman Dede, of course, was old. He was in his 80s when I met him. And I also met some other really wonderful Sufi teachers in Turkey, all of them in their 80s, all of them the closing chapter of Ottoman Sufism. It was great to have that living connection to the Ottoman Sufi tradition, which really was ending way back in the 1920s, but these people had been educated under that system. So I had a taste of something very ancient in a way. I saw how they lived. I was welcomed into their homes. And I saw their beautiful manners, their qualities of humanness that they exemplified were just very beautiful, very human. So why did Sufism feel like a home and not some, for instance, abstract enlightenment experience? I had known teachers who were masters of will, masters of awareness, some of them quite aloof, even a little bit intimidating. But when I met Süleyman Dede, he was the kind of enlightened being you would like to sit down and have tea with. And he was humble and ordinary in a certain way, but also extraordinary in many ways. He had a magnetism that would just attract people. They didn't know why they were attracted or what was drawing them. It was a beautiful ordinariness. And actually, I think the most important thing is that in some unique and so far unknown way to me, I felt loved in a way I'd never felt loved before. Of course, my parents loved me, and my wife loved me, loves me. But this was something else. This was something unconditional. This was something spiritual. And it was as if through this 85-year-old man, I felt that my soul was loved by God. It wasn't a personal love. And that, in some subtle but powerful way, changed everything. I think that's also at the heart of Rumi's message. I think that's what he's trying to convey to us. And it also goes all the way back to the Prophet Muhammad, who spoke about the incredible mercy and compassion of existence, and that this is the nature of reality, that reality is fundamentally an expression of love, of divine, and we don't quite have the words for it, beneficence, unconditional love, and that the whole journey of our lives spiritually is to learn to recognize that we are loved, and that love is our teacher. It's bringing us the lessons that we need to learn, and that those lessons are ultimately lessons of love. Everything else is secondary. So from this point of view, you could say that the whole purpose of life is to come to know the nature of reality, which is loving, intelligent, I could say generous with its love.